Continuing from where we left off, Xiao Yan and his group finally entered the ancient emperor's cave mansion and discovered nearly all the heavenly flames listed in the ranking. As soon as this thought took root in his mind, it quickly spread throughout Xiao Yan's entire being, becoming impossible to shake off. Xiao Yan took a deep breath, suppressing the storm of emotions within him. If his guess was accurate, then Tuasha Ancient Emperor was indeed terrifying. He had collected all the heavenly flames in the ranking, except for the number 1 ranked flame. Such a feat was beyond human comprehension. These heavenly flames, although they contain their original essence, have lost much of their power. Now, they are just ordinary flames retaining their original forms. Xiao Yan glanced at the towering stone pillars behind him, feeling a bit regretful. If he could refine and absorb all these flames, his power would reach an unimaginable level. Absorbing over 20 different heavenly flames at once, this was something that seemed unprecedented in history. Little E, sitting on Xiao Yan's shoulder, stared at the second stone pillar with a complex expression on her small face, a mix of confusion, pain, and fear. Xiao Yan gently patted Little Yi's head. He was now certain that both Little E and the void-swallowing flame had once been bound to these pillars. Somehow, they had managed to escape, but something must have happened during their escape, causing their memories to become hazy or fragmented. Of course, this was just Xiao Yan's speculation. As for what exactly transpired, no one in the world could know for sure. After all, the pure lotus demon flame and void-swallowing flame, the involved parties, had already blurred memories of that distant past. Where is the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill? Emperor of the Soul withdrew his gaze from the pillars and turned to the void-swallowing flame, asking in a low voice. The void-swallowing flame turned its head, its gaze fixed on the end of the plaza where a stone hall stood, shrouded in thick mist, making it impossible to see inside. The void-swallowing flame opened its mouth, and a powerful suction force erupted, drawing in all the mist. As the mist dissipated, a colossal shadow suddenly loomed over the plaza. Everyone quickly looked up, only to be shocked by the sight of a massive stone statue, standing 10,000 meters tall, suddenly appearing before them. The statue depicted an old man, whose appearance was familiar to Xiao Yan and the others. It was none other than the master of the ancient emperor's cave mansion, the legendary Tuasha Ancient Emperor. The statue stood between heaven and earth, exuding an overwhelming aura that seemed to dominate the world. Under this aura, even Xiao Yan and his group felt as if they were being crushed by a mountain. Some of the weaker ones even fell to their knees, shattering the hard stone slabs into powder. Around the statue, numerous light clusters floated, creating a dazzling spectacle from afar. Are those Do skills and techniques? Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes at the sight of the light clusters, his heart trembling slightly. He realized that these light clusters contained ancient scrolls, and from those scrolls, he sensed a powerful spiritual essence. This essence was on par with the highest-ranked heaven-ranked techniques or Do skills in the outside world. Hundreds of heaven-ranked techniques and Do skills. Such a treasure trove would make even the most seasoned warriors breathe a little heavier. Heaven-ranked techniques and Do skills were considered rare, even among the Gu clan and Soul clan. Yet here, they were as abundant as common goods, filling their vision. However, while heaven-ranked techniques and Do skills were tempting, they couldn't captivate the likes of Gu Yuan and the Emperor of the Soul for long. Their eyes soon roamed elsewhere, still searching for the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, which remained elusive. This space hasn't been this lively in a long time. As everyone frowned in puzzlement, a faint, elderly voice suddenly echoed from the sky, resonating in everyone's ears. The sudden voice startled everyone, and their gazes quickly shifted, finally fixing on the shoulder of the stone statue. There stood an elderly figure, hands behind his back, gazing down at them with indifferent eyes, as if observing ants. Tuasha Ancient Emperor. Seeing the elder in simple robes, who looked exactly like the stone statue, Xiao Yan and the others couldn't help but exclaim in shock. His unique, dazzling long hair was unmistakable. The ancient emperor is still alive? Staring at the elder, who exuded an aura of supreme power, A terrifying thought crossed some minds. What's going on? The Emperor of the Soul, his face grim, turned to the void-swallowing flame and asked in a deep voice. He could indeed sense an unsettling aura from the elder, one that belonged to Tuasha, ancient emperor. The void-swallowing flame raised its head, eyes fixed on the elder. After a moment, it suddenly spoke. He isn't Tuasha, ancient emperor. He's the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. Upon hearing this, the Emperor of the Soul and Yuewen were stunned. Then their eyes locked onto the elder with a peculiar gleam. What are you doing, void-swallowing flame? The elder on the statue was also taken aback, then roared in anger. What do you mean? What am I doing? The void-swallowing flame frowned at the elder's outburst. Fool! If I hadn't helped you, and the pure lotus demon flame break free, how could you have escaped? You promised to save me too. The elder, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, shouted harshly. Everyone's bodies jolted upon hearing this, their gazes turning to the void-swallowing flame and the pure lotus demon flame on Xiao Yan's shoulder. They had been trapped here? The void-swallowing flame's expression shifted, then it frowned deeply. After thinking for a long while without recalling that period, it could only say calmly, "Sorry, I don't remember what you said, but..." At this point, it paused, then smiled strangely. "But this time, I am indeed here to save you. Come with me." The Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's face darkened. It stared at the void-swallowing flame for a long time before turning its gaze to the pure lotus demon flame on Xiao Yan's shoulder, asking, "Pure lotus demon flame, do you remember our agreement?" "Huh." Little Li blinked, then shook Xiao Yan's shoulder and replied, "I don't know you." Hearing this, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's expression became uncertain. After a moment, as if realizing something, it looked at the statue beside it and muttered through gritted teeth. "So this is your trick. Come with us," the void-swallowing flame said, smiling at the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. You probably want me for my essence," the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill sneered, looking at the void-swallowing flame. The void-swallowing flame smiled. Then its face quickly turned cold. "Attack!" As soon as his words fell, the Emperor of the Soul suddenly shot forward, his immense dou qi spreading out and transforming into a tidal wave that crashed fiercely toward the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. "Tricks of the trade," sneered the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. With a casual flick of his finger, he sliced through the incoming tidal wave of energy. This Imperial Grade Primordial Pill is exceptionally difficult to deal with. Let's capture it first to prevent the Emperor of the Soul from getting it, Yuewen said solemnly upon seeing the Emperor of the Soul attack. Agreed. You all guard against the Soul Clan members, Yuewen instructed, nodding at Xiao Yan and the others before he and Yuewen flew out. Instantly, the energy in the area turned violent, with wave after wave of attacks that seemed to tear the world apart, all directed at the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. Facing the combined assault of the Emperor of the Soul, void-swallowing flame, Yuewen, and Yuewen, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill remained composed. With every move, he emitted a heart-palpitating energy that repelled their attacks. Though he seemed unscathed, he was momentarily entangled and immobilized. Watching the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill single-handedly fend off 4 of the continent's mightiest warriors, Xiao Yan and the others couldn't help but gasp. If just an Imperial Grade Primordial Pill was this formidable, how terrifying would a fully refined Imperial Pill be? Even a dou di would struggle against such a grade of pill. As the fierce battle raged in the sky, the Soul Clan's numerous strong fighters grew restless. Xiao Yan's eyes flashed with a cold light. With a wave of his hand, Yin Jin and the others rushed out to intercept them. Seeing the coalition's obstruction, the Soul Clan members hesitated but didn't make another move. They knew the true battle was above them, in the sky, where the most critical fight was taking place. Whoever seized the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill would immediately turn the tide of this battle. Thus, they realized that fighting on the ground was of little consequence. Under everyone's gaze, the 5 figures in the sky clashed with earth-shattering force. The energy waves they emitted were terrifying even from a distance. Fortunately, the The space here seemed extremely stable, preventing the battle from tearing it apart. Xiao Yan looked up at the sky, his fists slowly clenching as he watched the terrifyingly chaotic energy fluctuations. The situation had indeed become complex. The power displayed by the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill was too formidable. Now, they not only had to prevent the Soul Clan from getting the pill, but also had to guard against Yuewen and Zhu Kuan being injured or killed by it. Either outcome would be catastrophic for the coalition. The unpredictable nature of this chaotic battle added too many variables. Terrifying destructive waves surged across the sky, as if they intended to annihilate everything. Xiao Yan watched the intensely chaotic battle zone with a grave expression, his eyes flickering slightly. Everyone had underestimated the power of the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. Zhu Kuan had initially thought that he and Yuewen could subdue it quickly, but after engaging, they realized this was overly optimistic. Moreover, the Emperor of the Soul and Void Swallowing Flame, though seemingly allies, often interfered at critical moments, adding to the chaos. Fortunately, this chaos affected both sides. While Zhu Kuan and Yuewen couldn't subdue the pill, the Emperor of the Soul and Void Swallowing Flame also had no clear advantage. Among the four, the slightly weaker Void Swallowing Flame was repeatedly attacked by Zhu Kuan and Yuewen. If not for the Emperor of the Soul's assistance, he would have been injured by now. "This can't go on," Yanjin muttered, frowning as he watched the chaotic battle in the sky. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan let out a bitter laugh. The battle zone up there was beyond their reach now. If they forced their way in, they would only be harmed by the destructive waves, leaving them helplessly standing by. Seeing the bitter smile on his face, Yanjin also shook his head helplessly. He understood that there was nothing they could do at the moment. In the sky above, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's face was cold as he flipped his hand, causing a rich fragrance of alchemical pills to suddenly fill the air. "Don't inhale the fragrance." Xiao Yan was alarmed upon catching a whiff of the peculiar scent. Under its influence, the dou qi within his body seemed to ignite. He quickly shouted a warning. Hearing his shout, everyone hurriedly held their breath. Fortunately, the fragrance wasn't aimed directly at them, so their dou qi, after a brief stir, gradually calmed down. Imperial Pill Palm. In the sky, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's eyes snapped open as he soared into the air, pressing his palm down towards the four below. As his palm descended, a dazzling light orb, roughly the size of a human head, suddenly appeared. With the appearance of this dazzling light orb, the energy in the world erupted like boiling oil meeting fire, engulfing the sky in flames. The entire world seemed to transform into a furnace. Seeing the power of the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's palm strike, even Yuewen and the others' expressions changed drastically. They urgently mobilized all their dou qi. The coldness on the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's face intensified as he pressed his palms down. The flames in the sky roared down at an astonishing speed, and in an instant, all the boundless flames surged into the dazzling light orb in his hands. Annihilate! As his palms pressed down, darkness fell over the world, save for the light orb in the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's hands, radiating destructive light. The orb descended, and in less than a split second, it was already above Yuewen and the others' heads. Facing such a terrifying attack, even Yuewen and the others felt a strong sense of danger. They instinctively channeled their immense dou qi to form their strongest defenses. The light orb collided heavily with the dou qi defenses above the four, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The destructive waves surged, and four figures fell from the sky, crashing into the plain below, creating massive cracks stretching thousands of meters. Witnessing this scene, everyone's faces changed dramatically. No one had expected that the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill could hold his own against four late-stage 9-star dou shangs. Although the four were divided into two factions with hidden agendas, they were still among the strongest in the world. Yet, even in a semi-cooperative state, they were beaten to such a state by the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. The Imperial Grade Primordial Pill floated in the sky, his gaze coldly fixed on the deep chasms below. For slightly battered figures rose from the cracks, dividing into two camps and staring at each other from a distance. To think you can refine me with your abilities? You're still lacking, the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill said with a glance at the four. Heh, isn't it a bit too early to celebrate? As soon as the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill finished speaking, the void-swallowing flame suddenly sneered. He turned to the Emperor of the Soul and said, "Give me the Tuasha Ancient Jade." The Emperor of the Soul hesitated momentarily, but then decisively took out the Tuasha Ancient Jade and tossed it to the void-swallowing flame. Grabbing the Tuasha Ancient Jade, the void-swallowing flame gave the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill a sinister smile. He suddenly bit his tongue and spat out a mouthful of black blood tinged with dark flames onto the ancient jade. His hands then began to weave intricate and mysterious seals. Seeing the void-swallowing flame's sudden actions, Xiao Yan was momentarily stunned. He stared at the seals, feeling a sense of familiarity. After a moment of contemplation, he looked up at the towering stone statue of the ancient emperor. Astonishingly, the statue's hand seals were identical to the initial hand seals of the void-swallowing flame. As the void-swallowing flame's hand seals transformed rapidly, the Tuasha Ancient Jade before him began to tremble and hum. Soon, a soft glow emanated from it, and the jade transformed into a dazzling, multicolored ring. The ring shimmered with various colors, with flames seemingly dancing on its surface, creating a wondrous spectacle. Transforming Pill Ring. How do you know the Transforming Pill Divine Mantra of Tuasha Ancient Emperor? The Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's previously cold expression changed drastically, his voice turning shrill. The void-swallowing flame sneered without explanation. With a flick of his hand, the dazzling ring shot out, appearing above the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill in an instant. Layers of fiery rings emerged, enveloping the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. As the fiery rings continuously coiled around him, wisps of white smoke began to seep from the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's body, accompanied by his agonizing screams. Seeing this, the void-swallowing flame's eyes lit up with joy, clearly not expecting the transforming pill ring to restrain the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill so effectively. He spat another mouthful of black blood infused with dark flames onto the ring, intensifying its flames. The Imperial Grade Primordial Pill's form began to shrink, showing signs of reverting to a pill form. Witnessing the previously formidable Imperial Grade Primordial Pill becoming so wretched in an instant, everyone was stunned. Yuewen and Zhu Kuan's expression shifted, and with a flash of determination in their eyes, they darted towards the void-swallowing flame, realizing that the transforming pill ring's power likely stemmed from the Tuasha Ancient Jade. Humph! Prepared for this, the Emperor of the Soul let out a cold snort. In a flash, he appeared in front of Yuewen and Zhu Kuan, flicking several pills filled with rich alchemical fragrance towards them. The pills exploded upon impact. The shockwaves from the explosion forced Yuewen and Zhu Kuan to halt. The Emperor of the Soul smirked, self-destructing ninth-grade treasured pills, quite the extravagant move. As soon as he spoke, Yuewen and Zhu Kuan reappeared on either side of him, launching a fierce assault that engulfed him. Caught between Yuewen and Zhu Kuan's combined attacks, the Emperor of the Soul quickly found himself at a disadvantage, his movements becoming increasingly erratic. However, understanding the gravity of the situation, he pushed his abilities to their limits, desperately trying to hold off the two. Amid the fierce struggle, a vicious gleam appeared in Zhu Kuan's eyes. With a low roar, an enormous dragon, spanning thousands of meters, suddenly materialized and transformed into a beam of purple-gold light. It struck the Emperor of the Soul, who had just exchanged a heavy blow with Yuewen. The brilliant purple-gold beam pierced through the Emperor of the Soul's formidable Do-Chi defense, striking his body directly. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying back several thousand meters before managing to stabilize himself. Capture! As the Emperor of the Soul was forced back, the void-swallowing flame let out a sharp shout. The Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, now without resistance, was absorbed into the transforming pill ring, becoming a dazzling light orb the size of a human head, floating within the ring. Seeing this, the void-swallowing flame was overjoyed. With a wave of his hand, the transforming pill ring shot towards him like lightning. However, just as it was about to reach him, a figure suddenly appeared and grabbed the ring. This unexpected turn of events startled the void-swallowing flame. He looked at the disheveled Emperor of the Soul standing before him, eyes flickering. Hand over the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. In your current state, even with the void-swallowing flame, you are no match for us, Yuewen said grimly, staring at the Emperor of the Soul. Yuewen, standing nearby, clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with murderous intent as he glared at the Emperor of the Soul. Want the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill? The Emperor of the Soul wiped the blood from his mouth and glanced at the dazzling light orb within the transforming pill ring. The light orb resembled a galaxy, with the energy of the heavens and earth seemingly condensed within it. Staring at the dazzling light orb, a bizarre smile spread across the Emperor of the Soul's face. To everyone's shock, he suddenly opened his mouth wide and swallowed the light orb whole. He actually swallowed the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill whole, an act tantamount to courting death. He's gone mad, Xiao Yan murmured to himself. Although it was just the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, the energy contained within it was unimaginably vast. One misstep and it could explode his body and even his soul. The Emperor of the Soul's action was indeed a desperate gamble. The sudden move caught everyone off guard. Even the void-swallowing flame behind him was taken aback, his expression turning somewhat grim. Everyone wanted the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, but he hadn't expected the Emperor of the Soul to recklessly swallow it in one go. Bastard! Seeing this, Yuewen and Yuewen's faces darkened, their eyes filled with intense killing intent. They shouted coldly, "Emperor of the Soul, you're courting death." Haha, courting death? Not necessarily. The Emperor of the Soul laughed wildly, his smile twisted. At this moment, his body began to radiate dazzling light, and the injuries inflicted by Yuewen and Yuewen earlier healed instantly. Waves of terrifying energy began to seep out from within him. Sensing the sudden surge in his aura, Yuewen and Yuewen's expressions changed once again. The primordial pill's energy is erupting. In a short period, his power will multiply several times, but afterward, the overwhelming energy will likely cause his body and soul to explode. Yuewen observed calmly, not panicking. Don't give him a chance to refine it. We must capture him quickly to force the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill out of his body. Yuewen urged, his expression grave, then shouted, "Attack?" Hearing his shout, Yuewen nodded. In capturing the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, the Emperor of the Souls group had already gained a significant advantage. Furthermore, at the final moment, the void-swallowing flame's use of the transforming pill ring had restrained the once mighty Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. The two moved as one, their thoughts becoming action instantly, and they shot through the sky towards the Emperor of the Soul. Haha, in your current state, you're no match for me. Seeing the two approach, the Emperor of the Soul laughed fearlessly, clenching his fists and punching out powerfully. With the Emperor of the Soul's double punch, the sky was ripped open, creating two massive vacuum zones thousands of meters wide. Feeling the terrifying force, Yuewen and Yuewen's expressions changed. They quickly channeled their do-chi to meet the attack. Instantly, two deafening booms echoed across the sky. A terrifying storm of destruction erupted from the clash of Yuewen and Yuewen's fists, the fearsome force driving both of them back hundreds of meters. Meanwhile, the Emperor of the Soul remained proudly aloft, the aura emanating from him growing increasingly formidable. Seeing this sudden reversal in the sky, Xiao Yan and his companions were visibly shaken. They hadn't anticipated the Emperor of the Soul's power to surge to such heights after consuming the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. Everyone understood that this was just the initial enhancement. If the Emperor of the Soul successfully refined the pill, he might very well reach the level of Do-Di. At that point, their chances of turning the tide would be slim to none. Yuewen, in this contest, I have ultimately triumphed. The Emperor of the Soul laughed as he stepped through the void, looking down at Yuewen and Yuewen. Years of preparation and planning had finally brought him to this critical juncture. Your body must be feeling the strain, right? Don't celebrate too soon. Gu Yuan retorted with a cold smile. The Emperor of the Soul merely smiled faintly, unperturbed. Closing his eyes slightly, he seemed to savor the powerful augmentation. Can you withstand it? Came the worried voice of void-swallowing flame from behind him. If the Emperor of the Soul were to explode from the overwhelming power, void-swallowing flame would surely be no match for Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan. You've been too reckless. Void-swallowing flame continued angrily, unclear whether his ire was due to the Emperor's consumption of the pill or because he had been deprived of it. Rest assured, I know my limits. The Emperor of the Soul's calm demeanor remained unshaken despite the rampant dou qi swelling within him. Upon hearing this, void-swallowing flame's eyes flickered before he nodded reluctantly. What should we do now? We leave peacefully. The Emperor of the Soul smiled serenely, his manner exuding a remarkable composure, as if he didn't regard Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan as threats at all. Leaving won't be so easy. Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan shouted in unison, their dou qi surging furiously as they launched an all-out assault on the Emperor of the Soul. However, with a casual wave of his arm, the Emperor of the Soul effortlessly deflected their attacks. While fending off their assault, the Emperor of the Soul traced his fingers through the air, causing a spatial rift to appear. Witnessing this, Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan's attacks grew even more frantic, their powerful dou qi tearing through the void and relentlessly hammering against the Emperor of the Soul's defense, causing ripples of energy to surge. Despite their relentless offensive, the Emperor of the Soul ignored them this time. Instead, he reached down, forcibly pulling up the Soul Clan experts and hurling them into the spatial rift. A wave of destruction surged from behind, causing the Emperor of the Soul's face to twitch slightly as a trickle of blood escaped from the corner of his mouth. Void-swallowing flame was instantly alarmed, realizing that the Emperor of the Soul's condition wasn't as stable as he had claimed. Enduring the assaults of two late-stage 9-star doushangs was evidently too much, even with the protection of the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill. Gu Yuan, I've said it before, in the end, I will emerge victorious. Once I fully refine the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, your Gu clan, the Lei clan, the Yin clan, the Sky Mansion Alliance, and the primordial ancient dragon tribe will be completely eradicated from this world. Swallowing the metallic taste of blood, the Emperor of the Soul turned his head, glaring coldly at Gu Yuan and the others, his voice chilling. Go! As soon as the words left his mouth, the Emperor of the Soul grabbed void-swallowing flame and shot towards the spatial rift. Seeing this, void-swallowing flame panicked and shouted, "What about my?" Before he could finish, blood cracks appeared on the Emperor of the Soul's neck. Understanding that the latter couldn't continue fighting, void-swallowing flame bit his lip in frustration and followed him into the spatial rift. Seeing that the Emperor of the Soul could tear open the space, Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan's expressions changed. With a low roar, they summoned an energy tide, which surged madly towards the Emperor of the Soul. The violent tide, as heavy as Mount Tai, struck the Emperor of the Soul's back. His face paled, and blood burst from wounds all over his body, turning him into a bloodied figure in an instant. Using this momentum, the Emperor of the Soul and void-swallowing flame dived into the spatial rift and disappeared, the rift closing rapidly behind them. Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan appeared where the spatial rift had been. They unleashed terrifying energy waves, but the space only rippled slightly, with no new rift forming. Damn it! Their faces turned grim. The stability of the ancient Emperor's space was astonishing. To leave, they would have to return to the entrance. By the time they got there, the Emperor of the Soul and his allies would likely be long gone. They descended slowly, faces dark, and looked at the silent crowd. Finally, they sighed. "Daughter, that scoundrel is too cunning," Zhu Kuan said, rubbing his hands and forcing a smile at Ziyin. Ziyin glanced at him, then at the silent Xiao Yan, shaking her head slightly. What now? If the Emperor of the Soul successfully refines the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, we'll be in big trouble. We go straight to the Soul Realm? Lei growled fiercely. Everyone exchanged glances and nodded. They had no other choice. Waiting would lead to the same fate as the Ling clan and others. Xiao Yan sighed inwardly. He knew the Emperor of the Soul wouldn't be foolish enough to stay. Given his current state, he wouldn't fight. They might hide the Soul Realm, which wouldn't be hard for the Emperor of the Soul, given the centuries of preparation. Let's hope he can't refine the Imperial Grade Primordial Pill, or else. Xiao Yan pursed his lips, looking at the others' worried faces. If the Emperor of the Soul reached Dodi, no one could stop him. With his vengeful nature, all allied forces would face destruction. There's no time to waste. Gather our forces and head to the Soul Realm. We must delay the Emperor of the Soul, stop him from refining the pill, or he will explode from its power. Yuewen said, taking a deep breath. Everyone nodded in agreement. Wait. Seeing everyone preparing to leave, Zhu Kuan's eyes sparkled. We can't leave empty-handed. Step aside. I'll take this plaza and the statues. Xiao Yan and the others were puzzled, looking around the plaza. Though there were many heavenly flames, they were like specimens, useless. The statues, once the pill was taken, became ordinary again. Do as you wish. Yuewen waved his hand, still in a foul mood, and headed towards the spatial tunnel. The others followed. Walking at the back, Xiao Yan glanced at Zhu Kuan and frowned. The old Dragon Emperor wouldn't do anything pointless. Was there something special about the plaza and statues? After pondering for a while with no conclusion, Xiao Yan gave Zhu Kuan a deep look before following the others.